Hi guys, welcome to Into the Word. Thank you for joining me once again. God bless your hearts. You guys are great. Today we want to talk about renewing the mind, okay? Today we want to talk about being positive. Today we want to talk about a new way of thinking, okay? Check this out. We as a human race, we have a tendency to verge towards negativity, okay? You know, we have two ways of thinking. You know the old saying, is the glass half full or is the glass half empty? More often than not, people will say that the glass is half empty rather than half full. Why? As a human race, as I said before a minute ago, we have a tendency to verge towards negativity, okay? You know, when something happens in your marriage, if you're a married couple, if something happens, your husband does something, the wife then tends to be a little bit more negative, okay? She'll look at the negatives, okay? If your wife does something, the husband then, he will look at the negatives, okay? Rather than look at the positives, rather than look at the good things that have happened during that day, he'll be stuck on the negative, and so will the wife, okay? So what am I saying? What am I saying? We have a tendency to be stuck on negativity, okay? You can understand it to a certain degree for non-believers, people who aren't believers, but the Father God has given in His Word instructions for us, okay? Romans 12:2 says it. Don't be conformed. Don't be like this world. Don't let this world shape you or form you, but be transformed. Be changed. How? By a new way of thinking. Okay, we can be changed. How? By a new way of thinking. Okay, by the renewing of your mind, by the renewing of my mind. I can change the way that I think. Do I have to see the glass half empty? I can see it half full if I want to. It's up to me how I choose to think. The only problem is, because we've grown up with that negative way of thinking, because it's been a part of our lives for so long, we have become experts at that, okay? So if we had 10 people, 9 of them would say the glass is half empty. 1 of them may say the glass is half full, okay? So in a nutshell, we have a tendency, as I said, to verge towards the negativity, but we don't have to. The beauty is the Father has given us a way out. The Father has given us an instruction, and if we follow that instruction, then we can change the way that we think. And the beauty is, when we change the way that we think, we can change as people. We can become somebody different. We can become more like Jesus, and that's what we want as believers. We want to be more like Jesus. We want to be more loving. We want to be more caring. We want to be more generous, okay? We want to be able to speak in a way that is more loving. We want to have pleasant words that come out of our mouths, don't we? We don't want to be harsh. We don't want to be bitter. We don't want to be angry. We don't want to be full of rage. We want to be full of love. And so if we change the way that we think, and we can, it will take time, it will take energy, and it will take effort. It's not a one-time thing. It's something that we do on a regular basis. It's something that we do every day. It's something that we do every week. It's something that we do every month. It's something that we do every year. We carry on changing the way that we think, okay? And as a result, we can become somebody different. So what am I saying? We don't have to be negative. We don't have to be negative. When something happens in our marriages, we don't have to say this is bad. We don't have to get stuck on that negativity. We can change that, but it's going to take time and it's going to take effort. If something happens in your work environment, if somebody says something and you've heard something and it's upset you, forget about everything good that's happened during that day. You will be stuck on the negatives, and you will think about it, and you will think about it, and you will think about it. What's happening? You're being conformed, you're being shaped. How? By that negative way of thinking, okay? So a better way of thinking, a new way of thinking can change us. But if we carry on thinking in a negative way, we are still being changed, but we're being changed into something different, okay? Our thoughts will turn into actions. So if we have negative thoughts about somebody at work, we may want to go and do something to that somebody at work, okay? We might want to take revenge. We might want to get our own back on that person. Our thoughts, our negative way of thinking about that situation has shaped us and has formed us. But the Father says in His Word that we can change our thinking. If we think in a productive way, if we think in a constructive way, if we think in a better way, we can become better. We can become more like Jesus. And again, our thoughts will become actions. We can choose to bless that individual. Do you see what I'm saying? We don't have to be negative. We don't always have to say things that are negative. We have a choice in it. We have free will. We can choose how we think, okay? How do I know that we can choose how we think? Because the Bible says, think another way. That's what renewing the mind is thinking another way, having a different thought, having a better thought. So it tells us to renew our minds, the Bible does, but it also tells us the result of renewing our minds, okay? We can become more like Jesus, as I said before, and if we're more like Jesus, we can have that good impact on those around us, okay? We could probably turn the world upside down, just like the disciples did, because they were like Jesus as well. They had a different way of thinking. They thought like Jesus and they turned the world upside down. So can we. But we need to think something different. Do we have to be negative? No. Do we have to say the glass is half empty? No. We can choose how we think, okay? So we have to train ourselves, okay? We have to go to the classroom. We have to make time. We have to make some space. We might have to turn our phones off. We might have to turn our TVs off. We might have to turn our laptops off. Okay, turn them off for 10 minutes, turn them off for 20 minutes, turn them off for half an hour, and we have to think, okay? We have to think in a way that's better. We have to train our minds now to think in a better way. We can do it. How do I know that we can do it? Because the Bible says, renew your minds. What does it mean to renew your mind? To think in a different way. If we could not choose our thoughts, if we could not think in a different way, the Bible would not have said that, because that would be unfair. We can say to the Father when we go to heaven, Father, that was unfair. You told us to do something that we could not do. But the Father knows that we can do it. He knows that we can do it. We just need to train ourselves to do it, okay? So make some space, okay? And go into your comfy chair, go into your, your living room, wherever it is good for you, and start to think in a better way. Start to say the glass is half full, okay? When you learn to think in a way that is better, when something happens to you at work or in your marriage or with your family unit, okay, it could be your parents have said something, but when they do say something, you can say, Father, I thank you, bless my parents. If your wife does something, you can say, Father, I thank you, I bless my wife. If your husband does something, you can say, Father, I thank you for my husband, bless my husband. If something happens at work, you can say, Father, bless that person at work, okay? You can say those things easier, okay? I'm not saying it's easy, but nothing in life is easy to start off with, but you can say those things easier when you have a different thought process, okay? And yes, again, we can choose our thoughts. We can control our thoughts, okay? We can choose to think in a way that's better, okay? So we sit down, or we go to the park, or we drive our cars, and we think better, okay? We learn to think better. And one way to do it, I found, is that you speak what your thoughts are. So for instance, you can say, Father, I thank you for this day, and you speak it, you think it, and you speak it. As you think it and you speak it, you are training yourself now, you are training your mind now to think better, okay? So do that over a long period of time. It won't happen overnight. It might not take a week, it might not take a month, it might not take 6 months, but it will happen. We have to train ourselves to do it. When you want to pass an exam at a musical instrument, you don't take your exam after 1 week of training, you don't take your exam after 2 weeks of training. Maybe after 3 or 4 years, when you become an expert at it, you take your exam. So that's how long it will take to train your mind. It's going to take time, it's going to take energy, and it's going to take effort. It's not easy to begin with, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes, okay? The easier it becomes. What am I saying in a nutshell? We don't have to have negative thoughts, okay? When something negative happens in our lives, we don't have to have that negative thought. We can see the glass as half full rather than half empty. But we have to train our minds to think in a way that's better, to think in a way that's constructive, to think in a way that's positive, okay? It will take time, it will take energy, and it will take effort, but it is achievable. How do I know it's achievable? Because the Bible says it. Renew your mind. Have a better way of thinking. Think more constructively, think more positively, okay? You can do it, and I know that I can do it also. So God bless your hearts. You guys have been great. Thank you for staying with me. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Help us to bring the message of hope, okay? God bless your hearts. The gospel is indeed good news. Help us to bring the good news message, okay? Share with your friends and share with your families, okay? So God bless your hearts. You guys have been great. Until next time, amen.